one more thing. There are all these buttons that we've got to push in order to get everything set up for our streaming live. Hey everybody, I am excited to be joining in the Stories of Gold conversation with Brad Powell. And Brad Powell helps us to make this experience a little less daunting. And if you spend any time on video, and especially doing Facebook Lives and so forth, you know that this process can be a little daunting, especially as you just begin. Brad Powell is a business coach and videographer who teaches entrepreneurs how easy it is to create engaging live video and video podcasting with just a smartphone and good storytelling. He inspires entrepreneurs to find everyday moments that make great marketing, and he's dedicated to helping small businesses get over the limiting belief that video marketing is too daunting and time consuming. So how can we make video less daunting and less, actually, let's just begin with that. We can get to the time consuming later on. But how do we make this process easier?
Well, people have a lot of limiting beliefs when it comes to video, truly. And I think the biggest one that people have is they don't feel like they're good on video. Like they feel like they have a face for radio is the joke. And so, and this is, I think it's both genders, but it's especially even stronger with female people. Like all the women in the world are going, oh no, I can't possibly get in front of the camera unless, and then just kind of fill in the blank, unless my hair is done, unless I have my face on, and that it's a real shame because what it has resulted in, and I think in the male world, what happens is the higher people are ranked in their profession, like if they're the CEO of a corporation or, whatever, they also feel like I can't possibly do this because if I goof up, like if I do something really foolish or stupid or dumb, like I end up looking dumb, it's going to be out there on the internet and it'll be there forever. And I will never be able to live that down. It will damage my reputation. It may damage the reputation of my company. And these are very limiting beliefs. These are internal things that we tell ourselves around what's going to happen in the sort of the worst possible nightmare scenario. And so if I can move out of that and say, okay, well, why should we do it? Like, how do you give yourself permission to go forward? And one of the ways, and this is why I'm such a big advocate of what we're doing right now, doing live video. And the reason that live video works so well is because it gives you that permission to be yourself because of the fact that it is live and it's in the moment. And it's totally different than making a pre-recorded video. If you sit down, and this is where people get stuck, if you sit down in front of your phone or your camera or whatever you're doing, and then you get lights on you and, like whatever you do in terms of your production, and you're trying to get a script out of your mouth and into the camera, it's terrible. Like you'll stumble over your words. You'll want to do take after take, talking like for a 3-minute video could take you 3 hours to record because of all the different, oh no, I didn't get that right. Oh, I think I can do a better job. Oh, let me try it again. And by the time you're done, nobody ever wants to do that. They're like, forget it. Okay, I did that one, but that's it. I'm never going to make another video again in my life. And people go through this experience and this is where they end up. And if, on the other hand, you simply pull out your phone at a time when you're inspired, and it doesn't, like the easiest thing to do is with someone else. So let's say you're out with a colleague and you're going for a walk. This is something you should do anyway. Like instead of sitting in front of your computer, go for a walk with your colleague and do a little brainstorming. And when you're in the middle of that brainstorming session, you guys will come up with something. And then go, oh, this is so awesome. Can we record this? And you pull out your phone, open up Facebook, hit the go live thing, and the two of you start talking when you're at the top of your creative flow, and just share that energy and experience with your audience, and then start interacting with them. So ask them questions, hear what they think, get feedback from them, get this instant thing. And whatever you're doing, whatever you're working on, whatever you're trying to do, it will be instantly more engaging. People will see you being actually real, you know, and it doesn't matter. Like, they don't care what you look like. Really, they don't. Nobody cares about what you look like except for you. What they care about is that, are you doing something that is going to help them get to a result and solve a problem that they have? And if you and your business and your work are oriented to that, and when you come to a medium like live video, and that's what you're doing, like you're actually helping solve problems, you're actually helping to make things better in the world. Like if that's what you're doing, that's what you're up to, you can't go wrong. Like there's no mistake to be made. Like even if, you know, your dog runs into the camera, or you drop your glass of water on the floor, or, you know, whatever happens, like none of it matters. In fact, if stuff that happens, we've all seen those viral videos of the straight newscaster and their little 3-year-old runs in the background, you know, and like people love that stuff, you know, and so you just kind of go with it and go, okay, well, this is like, I'm real, I'm doing this, and this is me, and people will engage with you even more, kind of the less perfect and the more real you are on camera. And so this is sort of like, it's not daunting. I mean, the other thing that I'll say about the daunting part is that we have such an opportunity. You know, if you can get ahead of yourself, and this is the work that I do. I was just talking with a client this morning about, I literally asked her, say, well, what's the thing that's happened that's the biggest impact of working together? And she said, confidence. I now have confident that I now can do this. Like before I didn't. And in working with you over a period of time, now I feel like I'm fine, and that I don't have to be perfect, and it's totally okay. And I don't need to put on makeup, and I can do this and it'll be fine. And so if we can get over that, if we can get to a place where like, hey, I am comfortable, I'm okay talking to the people who I want to talk to, serving them in this way. And in this last year, we really haven't had much choice. Like you had a choice of either being invisible, like you can't go to a networking meeting, and you can't go to your conference, and you can't be a speaker anymore in a public setting, and you can't teach a workshop with a bunch of people in the room. Like none of that stuff was possible. So this is really the only alternative to staying in an engaged way with your clients and customers and your prospects, all of these people who you want to be engaging with. And so you have a choice of like, well, I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to allow myself to get on camera. Or you can be brave and get comfortable with this medium and become proficient at it to where people will really appreciate you and really appreciate what you're doing, and actually being generous, especially during this time when everybody else is isolated and feeling alone. So if you can get over that, the technology is simple. Everyone has a phone, everyone has a laptop, and you can use either one to live stream. And through the magic of multicasting and through the magic of connecting that with all your social media accounts, you can go live, not just to Facebook, but to LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter and all of these major platforms. All of them have live streaming, and you can broadcast, you can multicast to all of them simultaneously. So it's a huge, huge opportunity. I mean, oh my gosh, you know, whenever has any single person had the opportunity to have their own media empire than at any other time in history? I mean, you know, go back 20, 30 years, the only way you would do this is if you could get on Ed Sullivan or something like, and that was a really hard gatekeeper to get through. So anyway, I want to, like, the whole thing that it's daunting is a myth, and it's a limiting belief, and it is actually much easier and simpler than people realize.
We had one of those live moments just now when my phone went.
There you go. These live moments happen. They're real. I mean, it's, you know, it's all good.
And it is true that, you know, it's amazing how much we can, you know, just with a few simple connections, relatively simple, we can broadcast this conversation, you know, so it's not just you, me, and me having a conversation, but we can invite other people to join in and to,
Oh yeah.
you know, to hear what we're talking about, to learn a little bit more. And one of the things that I have been thinking the last day or two about is that, you know, one of the values of story is that the more we can hear other people's stories, the better, the more that we can learn, and the better our lives can be. You
Yeah.
know, by having diverse people and conversations available to us, you know, life just gets better. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Well,
so
people appreciate your experience, the experience that you bring, and the experience that you bring is completely unique to you. And so when you can wrap your experience into a story that you share, this is where people will lean in and start really listening, like really paying attention. And when they do that, like when you hook them in that way into, this is a story that we're going through a narrative arc here, and they can see themselves in the story, if that's the kind of story you want to be telling, this is where it gets really powerful and transformational. Like, you know, I'm really a fan of one of these really great storytellers by the name of Matthew Dix.
Mm.
And he's won the Moth competition multiple times. He's got a terrific, terrific book called Storyworthy. And so anyone who's paying attention to this, if you want to get really good at storytelling, get his book or get it on Audible and listen to it. It's one of, I've read probably a dozen storytelling books, and this is by far the best, especially in terms of he actually walks you through some things to do. But one of the main things that he brings to the table is this thing of finding stories in your experience. And they don't all have to be your story. It could be other people's stories, but just stories that you grab from the world around you and stuff that you've done and other people have done, that, and find the moment in that story where transformation happened. And that's the story that you want to, those are the stories you want to collect. And sort of this, what was the moment of change? And if you can relate that, that moment, that's where the power of story really kicks in. And they become universal. No matter what it was, like people listen to this, we're all human, and we're witnessing another part of human experience in the story, and people just click. And our brains are so wired to it that when you are sharing, like this is the thing, is that people come on with this, there's another false belief, another myth about what should you do when you do anything with video, or even when you're just speaking, you know, to your audience. And people make the mistake, and business people are particularly adept at this, where we share information. And like PowerPoint is like one of the worst tools ever, because this is what it does. Like people go, oh no, I got to get this slide deck with all this bullet points, and I'm just going to share all this data and information. And this is like, I have to tell you all this stuff. And no one's going to remember any of it. You know, if they just won't connect with all these data points or these facts and figures or whatever it is that you got, it won't connect because there's no emotional content in it.
I came across a quote from Rudyard Kipling recently, in which he said that if history were taught as stories, nobody would ever forget it. You know, but how many of us, you know, when we're in AP history or, you know, whatever, and we've got to remember all these dates and so forth, and it's like, okay, I'll cram and, you know, get it all lodged in my head,
right?
But as soon as it's done, it's like, I don't remember anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, when I coach people in doing videos, there's a very simple format where you want to do something at the start that will grab people's attention. And it could simply be like, here's what I'm going to talk about today. Here's why you should watch this video. You're going to sell them on watching, because in the first few seconds, that's sort of the trick. It's like people are scrolling on their phone, which is probably where they're watching your video from. And if you do something at the start, which gets their attention in some way, then they'll be ready. But whatever it is, even if you're doing like an information kind of thing, I'm going to show you 3 ways to solve this problem. But before I tell you the 3 ways, I have something to share. And then that's your story. And if you tell the story and it has this transformation of moment of change in it, people will connect with you around that. And then they'll be ready to listen to the information that you have to share.
Absolutely.
And that's put those 2 things together, and you end up with very engaging content.
One of the ways I think about that is one of my hobbies or interests is language, and I'm learning several languages right now. And
wow, good for you.
And just trying to understand somebody else, looking for what's familiar, and maybe also a little bit of, I read a book a while ago, which is totally eluding me right now, but the idea is that there's a sweet spot with creativity and with connection, right? That there needs to be enough novelty for it to get our attention,
Mhm.
but there needs to be enough familiarity with it for us to relate to it, to appreciate it.
Yeah.
So when we open our stories, and it's been said many times and for a long time that, that one of the secrets to writing an effective book is that first paragraph. How do you get the reader engaged in what you're saying? And the same is true for, a conversation, or a Facebook Live or a speech on a stage or whatever.
Yeah.
But, get people's attention, get them interested in what you have to say. And it doesn't have to be anything dramatic. It can just be something that people can relate to and say, huh, never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Well, there's that. I mean, that's a big one. The change in perspective is one thing. Like I call it myth busting. That if you want to come to, your audience and get their attention, what you want to do is you want to challenge their conventional thinking. Like I started today, the limited belief, like everybody thinks this, and now I'm going to challenge that. And here's some evidence and proof and story or whatever to show that limiting belief is actually not true.
Right.
And that there's this other truth. And if, as an entrepreneur, the other truth is your truth, it's your insight. And now all of a sudden you become more attractive because you've got this other new way of looking at the world, or new way of being, or new way of solving a problem. And it's your way. It's this new process that is your thing. And that's a really great process to lead in terms of the narration of your story. This is the arc that you want to bring people on, is like, well, challenge their thinking, and now they're going to pay attention because, wait a minute, I believe this. Even if they are skeptical, they're going to pay more attention.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were saying about the dichotomy between creativity and familiarity, like the thing about being familiar, I think that's the whole familiar thing is also a huge part in the dynamic of what works. And in fact, I'll tell a little story. And this is really quick, but I was in the world of traveling back in the day when we could travel. I was traveling to a conference that was like a 3-day event, and I got on the plane, and the incident that happened was I sat down, and there's this woman there, young woman, probably like 21 or so, and she's like a lot of co-passengers on the plane. Like she had her earbuds in her ears and her iPad out, and she ignored me for the entire flight. Like she never looked up. We never said hello, like just completely ignored me. And I didn't really think that much about it, except that 3 days after the conference, after I'd been in the conference and I got back on the plane to fly back here to Boston, sat down on the plane, and next to me was the same person, and this time when I got to my seat, she glanced up, we both looked at each other, and we both started laughing because, like, who would have thought that we'd end up sitting together again? And then we started talking. And I learned all the stuff about her. Like she was a student at, I can't remember which school, but some school here in Boston. And she'd been down visiting her sister over the weekend, and she was studying accounting. And I was telling her, well, that's great, because you're never going to have to look for a job, because everybody needs an accountant. No. So we had this conversation. And the thing is that what gave her permission to talk to me wasn't any big thing. Like I was familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And in the context of the plane, I was the only familiar face. I was no longer like the plane is full of strangers, but simply because we had been on the flight before, I was familiar enough to break the ice. And in the context of what we're talking about today, like live streaming, if you show up like this, if you go live, whatever, like once a week or with any kind of consistency, you become that familiar face for the people who are seeing you go by. And even if day one, they just scroll by your feed, and then a day later, they scroll by your feed again, and they don't, like they never watch your videos, but after a while they're going, oh, I've seen Steve go by here on my Facebook feed, for the last month. Maybe I should just watch one of these, see what he has to say, but you become this thing that becomes familiar. And it's way easier than most people think. It's like, it's just this little step of, oh yeah, I know you because I've seen you do this thing. And, for me, like I am no celebrity by any stretch of the imagination for anybody. And yet I've had the experience of going to events, even small ones, where I literally have had people running up to me and saying stuff like they would say to a celebrity. It's like, oh, I've been watching your videos, and oh man, it's so great to meet you in person, and this kind of thing. And, to me, it's like, well, yeah, anyone can do this kind of thing. It doesn't take that much to become that, that thing, that whatever it is, inspiration, or that person who is giving value in a meaningful way to the people who care about the stuff that you really care about.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I really like that point, because it reminds me of when I was sharing some of my photography on Facebook, and I was getting very little response from it, and I was like, okay, what's the point of doing this? And then I was at a birthday party for a friend of my daughter's, and the father of the daughter, who is a friend of mine on Facebook, just, went on and on. Like every time I see him now, he goes on about how much he likes my photography and everything. He never liked it. He never commented it. He never, there was like no engagement. I had no idea that he even saw it,
right.
But it made enough of an impression on him that, it became a topic of conversation, and, helped strengthen the relationship that we had.
Right.
And so it's one of the things that's challenging about, doing things like this Facebook Live stuff is that, we have a limited perspective as to what the impact we're having, right? I know that you're on the call because I see you, but I have no idea who's on the other side, who the people are that are being touched by it.
Right.
And so there's part of what, and I've, in the beginning of April, I took on the 77-day video challenge that I heard about through Mark Brown and Darren LaCroix, who do the Unforgettable Presentations podcast. And they're both world-class Toastmasters speakers. And they extended this offer, or this invitation for people to do 77 days of video challenge.
And there you go.
And I've done Facebook videos, lives, I know, a handful of times before, but the thing that always got me was that void on the other side. Like, what's the point of doing this? This isn't comfortable. This isn't fun. And why am I doing this? But committing to and saying, okay, I'm going to do this 77-day video challenge, and it actually is becoming more of an enjoyable experience. And part of that is just, gaining more confidence in the technology, in what I'm doing, and that part of it. But part of it's also just getting comfortable with it. I don't know how it's going to work out, and being comfortable that it doesn't have to look some specific way in order for it to have any value.
Yeah.
Whether anybody watches it or not, and I'm really grateful for those who do, but I get so much value just out of doing these Facebook lives.
Yeah, well, I think that brings up a couple of really interesting points on going live. I mean, I think it's a really good question to ask yourself when you do a live video is, well, why is this live? What's the reason to make it live? And it's always true that more people will see that video as a replay than join you live. That will always be the case no matter how you do it. However, live is a thing that is, in the moment. There is this opportunity that this is happening in real time. There's something happening right now. And the creative opportunities here are, well, what could we do that would be more interesting or more unique to this moment? And so, like right now, I've been doing a lot of mobile live streaming, and I'm really wanting to push the envelope of what else can I do with this? And at the very least, it's nice. It's late spring, the weather's really nice. So to me, it's like, well, anytime I go live, instead of sitting in my room like I've been doing all winter, I'm going to go outside somewhere because that's what I want to do anyway. And so I'm out, I'm already having a good time. I'm already doing something that I enjoy doing, and I go live. And so every time I do it, I've been going live every day for a little while, and I'm always in a different place. I'm always sharing a little bit about where I am, why I'm there, and what I'm doing, in addition to whatever it is that I'm talking about. And to me, that, and it's great because I'm using my phone, and yet I'm also multicasting to multiple places all over social media land. And so I can hit, like, if you happen to be a LinkedIn person and you hate YouTube, well, great, I'm going to see you there. And if you actually are a YouTuber and this is where you live, I'll see you there too, and on and on. So it's like I get to create an event, and this is sort of the mindset that you want to have. Like, I'm creating a live event, and I'm inviting you to my party. And who else can I bring? Like you and I are on live today. And so, like, I have a weekly show. It's called the Live Stream Show. And every week I have guests come on, and we have a chat about one thing or another. And now I've discovered that I can hook my good camera up to my phone through an HDMI cable and a couple of adapters. And now I can be anywhere, mobile live streaming, mobile multicasting with my good camera that's streaming out through the phone. And I'm just going, oh my gosh, and now I'm going to hook up, like, I can hook up my multi-camera switcher. And so I could have like 4 cameras and literally be on the top of a mountain somewhere, as long as I have a cell phone signal. And I could be, here's the looking over the edge of Mount Washington. And here's, the vista down the valley. And here's me, like over here. And I could be switching back and forth between these views mobily. And to me, this is exciting. Like, so, oh, how much fun can I have doing this? Like, what else can I do? And this is sort of like, and again, like answering that question, why is this live? Like, what can I do that I'm doing something that is in this moment, and I'm going to share that experience with all of you. And if you can do that, we can get away from what are the normal sort of limited Zoom call environment, kind of thing. And the cool thing about it, and again, like I keep speaking to the opportunity, is that we've all seen the very best broadcasters, the very best network TV, news, entertainment people kind of brought down to having to go on camera from home. And many of them aren't particularly good at it. Many of them have relatively mediocre production value. And so if you take this on as like, oh, I can do this. This is going to be a blast. Like I can put on a show and it's going to be awesome. You know, if you can just be willing to jump into that breach, you can jump ahead of practically anyone, because it's not hard to do a couple simple things with where you are, how you're lit, how you sound, etc. And all of a sudden, you know, people are really connecting with you. And if you just go pursue stuff that you really like doing, like maybe what you like is to eat tacos from the food trucks, and you live in a place where there's, you know, 40 different food trucks in different neighborhoods. And so that's what you do. Like, join me for taco time every lunchtime at noon, and I'm going to be at a different food truck and we're going to interview the food truck driver. You know, do that. Like, if that's fun for you, and you like to share, like, oh man, this one's got all these different, you know, mango salsa and whatever, like just do that thing. If that's your thing, go do that. And then you can tell stories along the way, or what else you want to do. You know, there's a guy who's a realtor in I think it's in the Phoenix area. And he has a weekly show that he calls East Side Eats. And so we're talking just a neighborhood, like just a section of Phoenix. And he goes to a different restaurant and he walks in, he's got his camera, or he's got his phone on a gimbal, and he just walks in, he meets the staff, he goes into the kitchen, meets the people in there, he talks to the owner, you know, and then he sits down, has a meal with his friends. And that's the show. He is a realtor. Everybody knows him because all these people are like getting this vicarious experience of what are the best places to eat in this area. And of course, because now he's a semi-celebrity and like he's got this following that follows him into these restaurants, you know, he's done sort of this like local, who's the guy who did the Parts Unknown? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name now. There's a TV guy who did like all around the world to restaurants and eateries. And
yeah, I'm thinking of Guy Ferrari, but I don't think that's who you're thinking of.
No. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It just like Parts Unknown is a sort of the glorified example of this, but this guy's just doing this little thing all on his own, and he's enjoying it, and it's helping his business. Like all these people who he would have never met, he's now familiar with. You know, they all know him. And, you know, the people who go out and eat at nice restaurants are the ones who are homeowners and home buyers. You know, so he's speaking to his target audience. And when they think of, well, maybe we should, you know, get a realtor engaged when we sell our house, they know, well, we know a realtor. It's this guy.
Wow. That's cool. That's, and I'm thinking about a couple of things. One, how I could do that with, one of the things that I do is my subject for photography is typically landscape. And I'm just thinking about, live in nature preserve, just like literally on the other side of the property that this house is on, and totally extend from just doing stills and snapshots to doing some Facebook Lives and that kind of thing.
Well, you could do, there's a guy you need to go look up. His name is Thomas Heaton.
Okay.
He's from the UK. He has a really popular YouTube channel, and he's a landscape photographer, quite good one. And what he does on his YouTube channel, these are pre-recorded, but you could do it live. He goes out and he'll hike up some, you know, peak in the Scottish Highlands or somewhere, or in the Lake District. And he'll do it. He always goes out like early in the morning before dawn. And he makes these films. Like he has 2 or 3 cameras. Like he'll put a camera on a tripod, he'll put a camera on a drone, and it gets all these shots of him doing the hike. And he's voiceover narrating all along the way. And then he'll get up and then he'll explain what he's looking at and how he sets it up and what he's thinking and all this other stuff. And then he'll put the final photo up on the screen after it's all been done. And so you could do something similar as a live stream where you would go out, and I'm not sure how you would be able to share the photographs unless you like went out and shot some photographs and then you went back and sort of recreated it live. But you could do that. And then the thing is that you could have these images queued up in your storage on your phone. And then, through these apps, you can actually say, okay, watch this photo, like here's a photo. And so you could go out to the place and you could be there live and you could talk about it however you want to talk about it. And then you could share the image and then you could go to the next location and do the same thing. It would be pretty cool. But anyway, go check out Thomas Heaton. I love his channel. I just like the way he's telling stories, and I really like what he's doing a lot.
I'll check that out. The other thing that it brings to mind for me is just the value of, having a practice, whether it's going to, eat on the east side, or whether you're going on a hike in the Scottish Highlands or whatever, or if it's just quote unquote, going around Boston, and doing videos, when Facebook Lives and so forth, when you're doing that. But one of the things that I've found is that the more that I have a practice, the more that I do something regularly, routinely, the greater the opportunity that I have to expand the expression, right? Like when a number of years ago, I was working on doing these little patterns for, I think I was creating 100 caterpillars or something, or ladybugs or something. And, the first couple were like, I don't really know. And, and my ideas weren't the more that I did, to put it short, the more ideas that I had for how else I could do it. Right. When I just did it periodically, do it once, it's like, okay, I've got to really work in order to get that. But after I'd done 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, it just got easier and easier to do.
Yep.
And the more creative it became.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's like everything. The more we do it, the better we get, the more we feel at home with the practice. And I mean, the reason that I am a video person, that I do videography, is that it's a never-ending learning curve. Like it's a never-ending creative release. Like as somebody who is artistic, as somebody who wants to be expressing myself artistically, I just love this as literally an artistic expression. I mean, it's super creative. There's so much all the time that is new. In terms of the technology changes, there's new opportunities, there's new this and that. Like I'm not a gigantic gearhead. I like to have much more of a minimalist approach to doing this stuff because I don't want to be basically trapped by the gear. I want to be much more like, well, let's see what I can do with any camera, with any tool, and see how great. Like I remember when I was first learning photography, the high school class that I was taking, we were given these little plastic cameras made by Acme. They were like super cheap and they were film cameras and they were terrible. Like they leaked light in the side. And I mean, they were, they were bad and they had little plastic lenses. And I mean, they were really bad and crummy. And the challenge was, okay, how can we still use these and get something that is interesting or good or whatever? And that was all purposeful. I mean, obviously it was a budget oriented thing. Like they give us a cheap camera because that's all they could afford. But still, like the thing was like, okay, we've got this tool. How can you make it work? And ever since then, I've just like, yeah, okay, well, let me just go with whatever I've got and see what I can make happen with it.
I had a similar experience. I had a DSLR when I was first starting to learn photography. And I honestly don't know if this is entirely the way it happened, but I think I just set it down when I was at the library, which was one of my favorite places to go. And I stepped away from it and it stepped away from me and I haven't seen it since. And so I had to learn, okay, without that $600 camera, how can I still do some photography? And I had to learn, well, how do I use this thing better?
Right.
And so, and it's amazing what you can do with simple technology, whether it be that Acme, that seems even more extreme than my example, but but there's a lot you can do with just, let your legs be your zoom lens is one of the ideas
Oh,
that I've
yeah,
heard.
totally.
Instead of having to have these ridiculously long lenses in order to zoom in on something,
Yep,
step a little bit closer, you
yep,
know.
yep,
So
yeah.
there's a lot we can do with not much technology, and it's really learning how to capture what we're trying to share with our audiences.
Yeah, completely.
So our time is coming to a close, unfortunately. There's so many more questions I want to ask you. What would you, before we end, I want to ask you a few questions. One, what one app, if you were to recommend one app for people to use on their smartphones in order to make most advantage of these opportunities, what app would you recommend?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, the app that I'm using now, which is relatively new to me, is this one called Prism. And it's PRISM. It's free. And the reason that I like it is because it basically operates the same way that, Facebook app operates in terms of live streaming. However, you can hook it up to this other tool that I use called Restream. And this allows you to multicast. So there are many apps, many ways to go live off your phone, but Prism is the one I found, and in fact, you don't need to use Restream if you don't want to. It will multicast all on its own, but it's a little bit more limited. It doesn't have a connection to LinkedIn, for instance, but you could go Facebook and YouTube and Twitter just using Prism.
Okay.
But because you can also connect to a Restream tool, now you can be multicasting all over the place. And so I've been using it a lot recently, and I really like it. It works really well. It's really simple.
Nice. So the second question is, how can people learn more directly from you on how to create engaging videos?
Well, a couple of ways. The simplest thing to do is just go to my homepage at awesomevideomakers.com. And I've got a lead magnet there, a freebie called the live stream formula. So if you're interested in, the big daunting part is, well, I'm going to go live, but what do I say? What do I do? And so I've created this really simple framework so that if you're going live and you want to do engagement, you just follow this framework and it'll tell you like what to do at the start and when to stop and talk to people. And like this really, so you just follow these 7 basic steps. You can print out the framework and you can post it up in front of the camera and look at it while you're going live. And it'll just be this reminder to, okay, I'm live. And these are the things that I want to be doing all the way through. And it's a really good, I'm not a big fan of scripting, especially when you're live. You do not use a script, just have a little outline and go off of that as if you're giving a talk and you're just got some bullet points, just do it that way. But this is like an overlay on top of that, which is really more around what are we doing with the audience here, which is the thing that most people forget when they're live. And so that's just available for free. And I'll mention that I'm just opening the doors to a new program that I'm running that actually is marrying live streaming with podcasting. And I'm very excited about this because what I see now, like live video is great and video is great as a medium. The thing that doesn't work as well a lot of the time is that when you're trying to impart a certain amount of information, it's too demanding, that it requires people to sit down and, like, if you're teaching a course, log into your membership site and watch a bunch of videos. And as a result, online education is having a big problem because people who sign up for a course and pay for a course don't complete the course because the medium is too demanding. It's like, well, I don't have time for this. When do I have time to stop and watch, 40 videos? So I'm developing this thing that is basically like a podcast funnel that connects with your live videos. And it's a way to, whether it's a lead magnet or it's a 5-day challenge or it's your actual course, you can create this audio material, the informative stuff that people like, giving them the result that they're looking for, whether it's on a lead magnet or a challenge or whatever, but they can actually get it on their phone, on their favorite podcast app. And it's private. It's private to, like, they're the only ones who get it. However, it's right there next to Joe Rogan and Brene Brown and all their other favorite podcast shows. Like, and so the end result is that you're top of mind, like your content that is giving them the result they want, that they can do when they're walking their dog or riding their bike or going to the gym, you know, like it can do it around their life. You know, they can do it while they're washing their dishes. They can be listening to your stuff. So now you're fitting in with their time. And now they're much more likely to consume your content. And so you become familiar through live video, but you deliver through private audio.
That's such a good point.
So anyway, this is going like the 1st of June. I've got this thing, it's the first beta version of what I'm calling Big Reach Audio. And people can find that at bigreachaudio.com.
Cool.
And the doors are open, just happen to be open now.
Awesome. So the last question I have for you, and the question that I ask everybody is, what makes for a richer story?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. What makes for a richer story? I mean, part of it is what I was talking about earlier, the transformation. You want to dig deep and find what's the part of this narrative where change is happening. Because it's all about, you know, like when you go to make a story, when you go to build your business, when you go to do these things that we're doing, the question wants to be, what change are you trying to make? And so if I'm going at, you know, like when I'm doing a live video, what change am I trying to bring when I'm making this video? What am I really, what's the thing here where I'm trying to change something and make better things, make something better. And, you know, Seth Godin talks about that, you know, make better things, make things better by making better things. That's the phrase. And so you want to have that mantra in your head as you're bringing the story into being, like, okay, so I'm going to make things, change things for the better by telling a better story.
Nice.
And with that perspective, you're going to be coming at the storytelling from the right place.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to our audience for tuning in. We really appreciate you and the interest and your desire to make a richer story and create a brighter world. Until our stories meet again, be the bright light in someone's dark night. Ta-ta.